But an aside here, let's read an article about abortion that radicalized Simone. And
Oh
had
yeah,
her
I want to know.
crying.
I wanted to know about this. Yeah, let's hear
I
that.
think this is a good one. I think I would go so far as to say I think that this article. I am going to skip around it a little bit, but I think that this article should be required reading and will be required reading for my children.
I'm
With
sorry,
regards to
somebody said something so funny to you in chat.
what did they say?
Malcolm, did you know that every time you yawn, a ghost puts its penis in your mouth?
Yes, this article is called "What Nobody Told Me About Abortion." On the sort of afternoon full of ripe summer fruit, my new boyfriend and I, still flush with sweat and limerence after some midday sex, stared at an ovulation test strip and realized we'd misread the earlier result. Uh-oh, I said, lightly amused, as thousands of rom-com moments flashed through my mind. Cue the clueless horror movie protagonist who fails to notice the axe murderer behind the bedroom door, mistaken about the genre of the story unfolding. We listened to music and swiveled back and forth in the office chair while narrating ChatGPT's damning answers to my questions about fertility windows and test strip line darkness. My boyfriend kissed me on the cheek each time he walked past. We rifed about games we could play at our abortion party. Our decision calculus was numerical.
Party. What the fuck?
I know, right? Well, I mean, she's writing all of this in this way to show how radically her position changed, how radically her perception changed. And I think many women in this sort of progressive mindset feel this way at first. Mm-hmm. And I think this article reminds us we can reach these people. Our decision calculus was numerical, emotions and afterthought. There is a 1 in 4 chance of conception each month, so deciding not to take Plan B would result in a 25% risk of needing an abortion. Plan B cost $50 and abortion $500, but was only a 25% chance of conception. The expected value of the option being $125, Plan B and early stage abortion seemed practically pretty similar. Nothing to consider there. If you get pregnant, we'll let us just know you're fertile, my boyfriend pointed out. True. Why would anyone pay for fertility testing with such thrilling alternatives available? I quipped back. In the end, my sense that failing to take Plan B seemed plainly stupid led us to swing by CVS on our way to the Under the Sea theme party in San Francisco. I was wearing a black and gold ball gown. He, a shimmery jacket, made him look like an undiscovered mer creature dredged up into luminescence lit family planning aisle. Later at the party, I recounted our ill-fated afternoon with punchlines as I pried open the clamshell package and unceremoniously swallowed one of the Plan Bs in my friend's cozy kitchen. 9 days later, my breasts were suspiciously sore. I took the pregnancy test again and laid it on the kitchen counter as we opened the closet doors, making tea and chatting lightly. A faint line, a wide-eyed silence. Reality dissembling itself and resembling into a new shape that was strange to make out yet. I known since before. So I'm going to skip some stuff here.
Yeah.
I knew I had to do it. Ignoring the mounting hum of my instinctual self, I walked across Berkeley on the chilly August evening to pick up abortion pills from the sort of friend who people think of when they say they know a guy. I'd originally planned to take the pills on Sunday, but that was all proving to be more difficult than I'd expected, and so I moved my plan forward 3 days to Thursday instead. Soon this will all be over. Now, before I go further, let's get thoughts like I have with Simone. Thoughts so far? I think she does a great job of exposing the way that she was relating to this at first. The way that many progressives relate to this. They think it's all a joke. They think it's all trivial, that there's no cost to any of these choices. I mean, that's what I think she conveys very well to here.
Yeah, it's so casual, and there's always it's not only that, there's always a contingency. Right. So it's like at any point this could be dealt with. So it's not really of a pressing concern.
Well, and I think that she can see in looking back how wrong all of this was, but it wasn't obvious to her at this point. And I think that so far she captures this sort of ghoulish mindset that we're looking at here.
Yeah.
I'm just skipping ahead a bit.
No, sure.
Nobody talks about the hell that is misoprostol, the abortion pill. I suspect that in politicization, no one wants to mention that the drug in question is a sledgehammer. On its quest to destroy the fetus, it obliterates the mother. On Thursday afternoon, I unceremoniously took the first of 3 doses, 4 little white pills shoved into my X as far as I could wedge them, tiny bombs placed quietly beside the cradle where my unsuspecting baby slept. I waited, fever rising, for the bleeding that should have started after an hour or 2. The second dose came and went, but by day 3, I could barely move. I took to the stairs one at a time, weakly gripping the railing, my joints aching with each step, the inside of my mouth painfully raw. Curled in bed, I whispered for more blankets, shivering and only dimly aware of my boyfriend there beside me, searching the internet for answers to my racing heart and shallow breathing. In the morning, I felt drained, but the fever pains were gone. The large maxi pad, which I had inserted, warned I may soak through, often as once per hour, was entirely dry. The thing was probability distributions is that like my probability distributions is that like my indomitable fetus at this developmental stage, they have tails. Misoprostol as an abortion protocol is 85% effective. As the 24-hour time period nearly end, I felt not even the slightest cramping. It became clear that I was among the unlucky 50% of women whom had a second attempt would be necessary. In taking the first dose of the pills, I started down an inescapable path and had no choice but to march to its end. As a friend would later say, the correct number of abortions is either 0 or as many as it take. In the end, it would take 4. I repeated the 3-dose protocol on Friday afternoon and once again descended into a quivering, feverish state, my frustration and depression mounting again. I did not bleed. I jokingly polled my friends on abortion options. Should I try a coat hanger next, or possibly tumble down the stairs? Even my most unorthodox friends urged me to go to a doctor, and so I begrudgingly called Planned Parenthood. The next day, a sunny Saturday, I walked past a lone poster to a steep San Francisco sidewalk with a Planned Parenthood.
Dude, that baby has crazy stats, though, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Damn.
Sorry. The next day, and keep in mind, this is on San Francisco, I walked past a lone protester at the San Francisco Planned Parenthood. Please don't kill your baby, she called to me heartfeltedly. Desperation welled inside of me. I wanted to grip her bony shoulders, to look in her eye, and ask her what she would have me do to this broken, beautiful thing inside of me that had survived 6 doses of poison and was now fated to die. More abortion pills were waiting, more shivering in the ball of feverish torment, still no blood. My memories of the surgical DC procedure for days came on me in fragments. The sharpness inside my chest, I remember a cold wand pushed inside of me, searching for a smudge of evidence of a baby. And then a room with a chair and an iPad video that smoothingly warned of hysterectomy risks. Finally, a room that smelled of chemicals where I sat on crisp paper and stared at a tiny tray strewn with ominous medical equipment in panic. Here my memory becomes strange, like trying to remember the faulty logic of a dream. I was frozen on a table, paralyzed despite my desperate urge to get up and run out of the clinic. Suddenly, it felt like the nurses and my doting boyfriend were closing in on me, and like a trapped animal, I became angry, ready to start to snarl at anyone who may block my escape. Throughout this, I did not move. Tears gathered in my eyes at the inevitability of the situation, at my overwhelming hopelessness. I presented my arm to the pretty young nurse who would administer the fentanyl and sedatives. I lay down and spread my legs for the kind of practitioner there to vacuum up my stubborn baby. What's a mother to do in a moment like this but carry a child gently to the executioner's arms?
Holy
Lights
fuck.
dimmed, drugs tugged at my limbs, and time became slippery as the doctor pried at me with a metal rod to widen my cervix. She explained as I flinched, the trapped animal howled soundlessly in defeat. At some point, the nurses left and reported upon their reunion with some excitement that they thought they'd spotted a speck of my baby under the microscope. Do you see its tail? I asked groggily. My sweet lizard baby with its tail. I hoped someone had gotten a glimpse. No, the doctor replied with a startled, amused tone, disappointingly. Can I keep it? I asked. They exchanged sideways looks. After a moment, one of them said, the state of California mandates that we send it to a funeral home. But it's mine, I said in disbelief. I'd come there and traded hundreds of dollars for the service of baby removal. I wanted to take the baby and be on my way. We agree with you, she replied, but unfortunately we have to follow the law. I'd been joking for days about where I would be at the moment the baby actually died, teasing friends that it might take forever and haunt their houses. This final location turned out to be a small brick clinic strip in a mall in Fairfield, California. I walked slowly out on that white afternoon, leaving my baby behind. Pyrrhic victory achieved. Before I go further, because by the way, it gets worse. It gets worse. But this is important to tell these stories. Somebody's like, yeah, I can't listen. Sorry, I don't want people to like leave the stream.
Keep doing it.
But
no, I want to hear this out.
This is one of these drugs that we talk about, and we talk about it being the baby has no neurons yet. The baby has no, this is one of these things where like I was like, I don't see how a soul can bind to something without neurons. And you read this and you then look at it from the perspective of a mother. And you understand the horror that you're going potentially into every time you have casual sex. Every time you have casual sex. Whether you have casual sex with protection or you have casual sex without protection.
Because it's all odd still, regardless. And none of them are 100%, right?
Somebody's saying, do you need a moment, Malcolm? Look, if I look like I'm getting teary about something, if you're going to get teary about something, this is something to be teary about, right? Like, this is not...
So what happens with the pills, though? So, like, if like, could you decide to keep it after the first dose? Like, does that have... Like, what kind of effect? That must have terrible effects if you did decide that.
So by the way, I don't know. What I will say is that this woman, I gave this context at the beginning of the stream, but that was like 10 hours ago at this point. She met her husband at Ayla's birthday gangbang party. So she was, involved in that kind of lifestyle. She was a fluffer there. And now they are monogamous and have a baby together. Horrible experience, but obviously it also transformed her life and her value system. And I think that, it's important to, this is why I say this writing here will be something that I have my kids read before they go through puberty. Because when I was warned against casual sex as a kid and people being like, oh, you could get whatever, you could get pregnant, it was also always sort of framed to me by the other side of, oh, well, you can always just get an abortion. Yeah. And the conservatives would say, well, that's murder. And I'd be like, well, it doesn't have neurons. And as somebody who doesn't believe your religion, I don't understand how that could be murder, right? Like that doesn't hit me in the same way of I don't have your pre-value system. Yeah. But if I had read this, right, I would have immediately been like, Malcolm's Guide 1-on-1 How to Traumatize Your Kids. No, traumatize your kids on this subject. Kids need to be traumatized on this subject. It's a traumatizing subject. And it reinforces the contrast in this piece between the first half of the piece and the second half of the piece highlights the trauma. It highlights how trivialized this issue is considered in our society and how real it really is, and that when you go into the piece and you see these conversations, you see I'll have an abortion party, wouldn't it be silly? And then you see the reality of what you are consigning yourself to with casual sex. And that's why I keep bringing this back to you. This isn't about abortions. This is about recreational sex. Because this is always a potential outcome from recreational sex if you don't think you will marry that person. Yeah. And that's why I'm getting, out here.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people do use it as like they use it as that contingency, right? I don't know, maybe they don't. It trivializes it, right? It's like, okay, so you have the small percentage chance of getting pregnant, but it's okay. We have things that we can do. Oh, that has a chance to fuck up. Oh, it's okay. We have other things we can do all the way down the line, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's treated like, oh, this is a, you know, what we would have. Yeah, it's just a procedure. It's just a procedure. It's just a medical procedure, right?
Yeah.
What somebody said is they're like, better to traumatize your kids with this story than have them go through it, right? And that's the point, I think, of this story for a kid, is it helps you as the kid understand, even if you think that an embryo at that stage is not a human being, what you might be doing to either yourself or another human woman. And I think very few people, like as callous as most young horny guys are, they'd read this and be like, I'm not gonna risk doing that to a girl. Not a girl who I like, not a girl who accepts me. Well, I think that this is like, even if you're somebody who's pro-choice and you're watching this, right? And you find this difficult. I even think as a pro-choice person, it's important to realize the cost here, because this woman was rabidly pro-choice when she got herself into this situation, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to communicate that this is an important story for even you to be aware of what's going on here. But to continue.
Do you think a lot of it is like these people who get abortions and then they feel the same way, but they don't want to like seem like they regretted it, or they're trying to trick themselves into believing that
that's what the next part of the story is about.
Okay.
Yeah. I recently had coffee with a friend who became very still when I mentioned my abortion. Tears sprang into her eyes, and she told me that she'd once had an abortion too. And although it was 7 years ago, and although she never wanted the baby, never even wanted to be a mother, it still makes her cry every time she remembers it. She'd taken the abortion pills about 2 days later in a grumpy dive ballroom with music strumming on the door. She'd found the clot of a baby in a bloody pad. I knew I had to eat it, she told me. And then, as though suddenly realizing that this might sound absurd, she tried to explain. I mean, I couldn't just leave it in a dirty bathroom. It was my baby. What was I going to do? Throw it in the bath? Trash? I stopped her, shaking my head.
What the fuck?
No. It made perfect sense to me. It really does. Of course you had to eat it. It was your baby. The maternal logic of this was unassailable. Anyone who's been a mother for any stretch of time would not question such a primordial urge. The animal mother knows what to do, and your judgments are not what carried evolution billions of years to that moment. So what did you do? I asked her. She ate it, she said, wide eyes. I was not permitted to eat my baby, nor to bring it home in a vial to bury it, or to put it on the mantle, or inspect it under a microscope for a tail. Perhaps if I had been, the cataclysmic crash of hormones that awaited me may have taken a gentler shape. Instead, in the days that followed, I began to experience borderline psychotic episode. These hour-long periods would begin with a vague sense of unease and build the world around me became twisted and surreal like a haunted house. Sometimes anger at my boyfriend would inexplicably swell inside of me, sharp, alienating, and distancing me from the one person who might understand my pain. Often I was consumed with an urgent need to go find the missing baby. My thoughts would enter obsessive, frenzied spirals about this desire, running through the consequences of the events that had led to my baby's departure from my womb where it clearly belonged. My memories of the DNC churned with an ominous bent. The kindness of the nurses suddenly felt coercive, like they had conspired to place me under a spell so that they could use the strange powerful of devices to remove a precious and integral part of me. I was frantic at the realization I'd made some mistake that had led to my baby going missing, and would pore over my memories trying to understand how this could have happened. Invariably, I would find the image of sliding $500 to the receptionist, of signing the execution papers. At this point, a void in my stomach would howl. My baby was dead, and I had been the one to do it. With the encouragement of my friends, I planned a ritual at Burning Man to assuage my grief. I gathered the only evidence I could find of my baby that ever existed, a pregnancy test dug out of the trash, and my blood test indicating a successful abortion. Crying, I stapled these to the wooden lattice of a temple, where 6 days later they could burn alongside thousands of other mementos of grief. A week progressed. I alternated between days of normalcy, days during which I biked across the playa in colorful costumes to climb art structures and dance into the sunrise, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, this is why people see this, and they're like, this really does seem like human sacrifice. Like,
yeah, no, they see this and they're like, oh, shit. Like, this is a real story. This is a real woman. This woman met her husband at Ayla's, one of our friends' birthday's gangbang, And now they're married and have a kid, and she lives a monogamous lifestyle. She changed significantly because of this experience, and she wrote a piece that went viral and changed a lot of other people's minds. I'm reading the piece because I think it's the best argument I have ever heard against early stage abortion. And that was something that previously I had never heard an argument presented so vividly. When I say, like, my wife, to understand Simone being radicalized against early stage abortion, I think you can hear me say that before I read the piece, and then you hear the piece, Leaflit, and you're probably like, oh yeah, I can see how somebody was completely radicalized by this.
Yeah.
It's a radicalizing piece.
What was the response from the woke, left people to this? It must have.
Why don't you grok it and look for it?
What was the name
that's something you could do while I continue to read. Get some prepped responses. Get some woke tweets about that.
Yeah, let me do that. Do you have a link
do
to
they have the ability to feel the emotion that I'm feeling when I read this? Do they have the ability to empathize and understand what's really being supported here?
Do you have a link to it? The article?
Yeah, I'll send a link to it right now.
Yeah.
A bunch of like newspapers and stuff did like articles on this after it came out because it like went viral in like tech circles and everything like that. And
yeah, I'll look into it while you go ahead. Mm-hmm.
But there was something intensely alluring about letting my thoughts slide further down the threads of psychosis, like scratching a spreading rash. Resistance was painful, and just on the other side of reason was a land of delusion in which anything I desired could be mine. In this world, my baby was not dead, but rather caught up in a complicated ritual, a puzzle that I could solve if only I could focus enough to make a plan. The pieces were murky, but involved the Planned Parenthood nurses, and now the Burning Man Temple. I could feel I was getting closer and closer to solving it. At least now my baby was here at a known location. I just needed to figure out how to find it in the temple before it was incinerated in mere days. On the penultimate night of Burning Man, I gave into the morning pull of the temple and left the cacophony of cars and my concerned boyfriend behind the Burning Man bike. I wove through the crowd, searching for my tiny effigy, eventually collapsing in devastation upon finding it. It was the paper. Delusions be damned. There was no baby waiting for me now. The following morning, I awoke with a renewed drive to return to the temple and try one more time to find my baby before it burned. I arrived at the heat of the day was rising, only to find the structure cordoned off with cones and caution tape and helmeted construction workers. It was too late. Just as with the DNC, the momentum towards an inevitable was too great. Basically, the rest of it, which I won't go over, is she points out that the rate of psychosis post-abortion is 15 to 30%. This is not a unique experience to her. She met many other women after she began talking about this who had experienced the same experience she had gone through. What she realized is tons of progressive women have experienced this. And they're just taught by their culture, you're not allowed to talk about it. You're not allowed to do anything other than talk about how great abortions are, how freeing abortions are. You're not allowed to say it was the biggest mistake of my life, manifold many times over. It's something I think about every day. It's something that eats at me every day. That the pills can fail in ways that can leave you feeling trapped. And that it's not clean and easy, even early stage abortions like this. She's never freed from this. She makes it clear that even today, even with her baby, she has this intense grief and self-hatred and regret because of this.
Yeah.
But what's also interesting is that she almost didn't even realize not having the abortion was a choice when she went into all of this because of the community and the normalization of this. She was with the guy she ended up marrying. She liked the guy. She was open to marrying him, but it just didn't fit the plan in the way that she wanted it to fit the plan.
The other thing that probably feels really awful, and it might not be something that they even talk about or admit, but like the idea that, like, because they have a kid now, right? It's like it's gonna be forever with you that, like, that kid could have had a sibling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, I hope they keep having kids. I hope they're good parents. Um, uh, she wrote a lot about how, like, and how people reacted to this, and she, it's why, like, she was the person brave enough to write about this experience coming from this cultural background. I think is also a really big thing. And when people talk to us about, like, why don't you swear off these communities? You know, the type of people who would meet their future husband at a gangbang, right? A birthday gangbang, right? That went super viral online. And it's because I could have, had this article been written, shared something like this was one of them. This affected multiple people in their community. How do you, if you can't communicate with these communities that are potentially open to hearing alternate perspectives, you can't save them. You can't pull them out. You can't win this culture war, right?
Like, are you actually trying to save anybody at that point, right? Like, through all the claims of we need to save people, we need to bring people, you know, into Christianity or into living a good lifestyle. Like, are you actually trying if you're not, you know, willing
if you're
to
not communicating with people who don't do it already?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I hold the same belief that it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good point. Yeah, if you're not talking to sinners, you can't make people not sinners. If you're not talking to people and communicating with people with an open heart, like, it's clear that if you went to her and you just scolded her or something like that, that wasn't going to reach her before this, right? You know, people do not, I mean, on the right, we know this. When the leftists all start screeching at us and yelling at us and telling us how evil we are, that's not something that gets through to us.
Yep.
And I think that for many of us who have come for the left, we understand, as I was a leftist in the past, that it was the one heartfelt and open things like this that got to us. It wasn't just like, well, I believe life begins at conception, and for these philosophical reasons. That's not very convincing to people. And I don't think I've ever seen anybody convinced by that, frankly, ever in my entire life, who didn't grow up just believing those preconceptions about how life works.
Well, I think in my case, you know, I come from the opposite angle, and your explanation of, like, in regards to twins and chimeras was kind of what changed my mind there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I obviously have a very tight position on this, which is to say, I cannot have kids unless I create blastocysts I may not use. Because my wife can only conceive through IVF. And we want to have all of the kids that we have in IVF. Yeah. But a lot of people who think that life begins at conception want to ban IVF. Or at least realistic IVF. They want to do like you do in Europe, where you have to do an immediate transfer, which basically locks you at like 2 or 3 kids. And that really got me, because I was like, well, I care about those kids in the future.
Wait, so I'm in I don't know the terminology. What is that? Immediate transfer?
Yes, immediate transfer or something. Like, anyway, no freezing is basically what it is.
Okay, got it.
IVF means that we have to combine sperm and egg in a lab and then have that implanted inside of my wife. She cannot conceive naturally. We tried for a half a decade. We tried all the money you could throw at this conceivably. We tried every medical procedure. It was just never going to work. Every one of my kids, who I hug every day, and I feel incredibly strongly about, would not exist without the procedure of IVF. Mm-hmm. So I'm in this very weird position where I have to be radically pro IVF, and radically against early stage abortion. And if somebody's like, so then how can you hold this position? And it's like, I take the position that leads to more children entering the world. Because I cannot, I do not think people could understand. It would hurt me more than I even described this woman feeling if I had to live a life without having kids. A life without raising kids. The thought of my kids, of my house being empty tomorrow in a world where we don't have IVF.
Yeah.
Like I wake up and I go down and I'm supposed to get my kids dressed and none of them are there. That's the world I would be living in most European countries. And that's a really terrifying world to me. So it's an interesting, very narrow position of radicalization.
Yeah.
And they're great kids. Yeah, somebody said they're precious. They're great kids. I like them. They're big. But it's an unusual position that I never thought I'd be moved into. I still don't think ensoulment happens until after neurons develop. But that said, I also don't think that it is societally net good to allow these drugs to be available for individuals. I think that they're just too risky. So I think that the knowledge that they can be used creates externalities where now, gangbangs and stuff like that make sense.
Someone from chat says, I want a wife now.
Wives are good. They're really good. My wife was super progressive when I met her too. I think everybody always is like writing off.
What do you say out of curiosity to people that say things like, so I saw someone in chat say, I don't want my bloodline continued. How do you feel about that? Like, just out of curiosity.
I think that's a good thing. Some people know what they want for the next generation. If they haven't liked their lives, if they don't like who they are, they shouldn't continue that. That makes humanity better.
See, this is what's interesting is I got a lot of criticism for that, right? I was telling you earlier about people saying that I'm being anti-natalist, thinking something like that. But I mean, you're like one of the most pro-natalist people.
Yeah, one of the most pro-natalist people. Well, because pronatalism has changed. What pronatalism was at first was trying to get everyone to wake up to the issue and saying, can we get society to solve this fertility rate crisis before things crash? Now pronatalism is about replacing the part of humanity that has betrayed the future. We must all pay to the future the debt we owe the past, and a portion of humanity just decided to cash out, to not endure the cost that every single one of their ancestors for all of human history had chosen to endure. And now, we enter this life or time where a lot of people are dinks, are just like, I just want to live for myself. Is humanity not better off for those people removing themselves from the gene pool? Like, I've changed my perspective. Very few people are going to impact a vast majority of human history because so few intelligent people are having kids. So if you're one of those people, consider like what it's going to be for your kids and the competition they're going to face in this next generation, and the wonders that they will have access to.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. I don't really think it's a bad that's a bad thing. Like if you think that, if you like actually for real think that, then yeah, then maybe you're right.
Yeah. And a lot of people are like, well, when fertility collapse continues, it'll crash Social Security and everything. I'm like, yeah, it will. There's nothing we can do. We basically came to the point where we tried to solve it. We tried to get people on board. And what we realized is the percent of the population we're going to get on board with the pro-natalist movement is going to be 3 or 4%, maybe, in a best case scenario. So we just need to replace the rest of the, it's a coalition of the diverse groups that make up the people still having kids.
Marry me, Leaflit? No, sorry.
Abandoning misguided people is a dick move. Well, we've signaled everything we can to get them on board. At a certain point, you need to say, I'm not going to continue forever. I'm not going to try forever. Like, we're still signaling. We're still in the news. We're still making our podcast. At any point, they could find us and wake up. But we've got to be realistic that it's better to put effort where the effort is achieving rewards. And that's with the people who are having families of like 8 or 9 kids. Because those kids are also more likely to have families of like 8 or 9 kids. And just have kids. I'll marry a sorry. This is okay. But yeah, also, what's your advice on grooming a woman? It's really, I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Just ask them, what do you value? Like, what do you want for a future, to establish a goal for them, and then walk them through how you can help them achieve that, and really do it from a best intention perspective. your goal with your partner should be what they want for their future. And it's through this that they often begin changing their perspectives.
If you find someone and what they want for their future is not anything close to what you want in your future, then there's no reason to pursue the relationship. You're just in for a very bad time eventually.
Yeah, and if you have that just similar or at least overlapping goals, then I think relationships that are mutually about helping each other achieve your long-term goals and thinking through your long-term goals are the most satisfying relationships.